right. Welcome back, art students. Now the fun part. Let's dip, dive, and dance around with our watercolor paint, wet brushes here, and a watercolor paint tray set, if needed. Because we used watercolor pencils, let's see what happens when we take our touch of water. Right away, I love this blended mixture of a color that's happening up here. It's very much like a muddy water consistency. And it also has some of those nice greens that act as a reflection from maybe some trees that are nearby on a shoreline. We do not have a sky in this artwork, which is very different from some of our other ones, and it's not underwater either. So it's kind of cool that we get to have this opportunity. Now, when my watercolor paint dries, I plan to go back to it one more time, either with my eraser or coloring on top of it once again with some colored pencils. So you may need to return back to this one tomorrow. Carefully going around. Oh, I absolutely love that beautiful brown-green color that's happening there. It's really nice. Okay. Great, I like how that is. Let's get a smaller brush now for a beaver. Let's do the beaver. Start back here on the back side. Oh yeah, that's good. Ooh, I'm liking it. Ooh, I'm liking it. Now, before I get too excited, I'm gonna tell you, even though this is a watercolor brush, try to have a little bit of control. I know you can't expect too much control out of watercolor paint, but if you're careful at using a nice tip of your brush, you can still kind of gain some sense of control with it a little bit. If you just wash a bunch of color across it, you might lose some of that control, because the water likes to go every direction that it just feels like it wants to flow, and sometimes your paper is going to want to buckle up, or it's going to want to curve on you so that it's creating like a mountain. So you got to kind of pay close attention what's happening as you're going. So if you can pay attention to where your tip is going, I'm kind of going at it to emphasize that texture. I'm kind of making quick brush strokes that are going in the direction of the fur. So my goal here is not to just paint over the whole thing and fill it in solid. I'm still trying to maintain the structural, textural qualities. But it's blending quite nicely, which I'm liking. I'm starting to see some pooling up here, so I'm going to dry out my brush just by pinching it. I'm going to try to push that around a little bit so that we lose that puddle of water, because if we left it there, it was going to dry right there, and we probably wouldn't want that. So when it's wet, you have the opportunity to manipulate it, but when it's dry, not too much. Just using plain water. I haven't really touched my watercolor pan yet. And I'm liking a lot of colors as they're blending together from the colors we used from the pencils. Now I'm excited to get into that tail. Okay, that's nice. I think, yeah, I think I want to use some of the black. I'm going to be very daring here. Use some of the black from my watercolor paint set. And I want to go in here with some deep, rich blacks. And just kind of really emphasize how dark some of these areas are. Might be too much black, so I'm going to wash that out. Wash my brush out. Now I can move some of that color around. There we go. You gotta keep thinking about how watercolor paint and your watercolor pencils can work together, because they're slightly different, but they also have some similarities. So it's good for you to start to understand how they work so differently, what their purposes are good for. There we go. Nice. Okay, I am going to use my big brush here, and we're just going to go in here and scrub around some of these bigger areas. I had some very fast coloring, shading that I did, and this is going to help turn that into a nice muddled sediment. So we're just going to quick run some water, scrub that around in like circular motions, and that'll kind of help take away some of those pencil marking textural marks. And let's try this tree. Ooh, I like that. Ooh. Sometimes it's just so magical what a difference. Once you just include water on those watercolor pencils, what could happen? I always am amazed by that. That's why I like watercolor pencils so much. They're so much fun. They're magical. I'm not going over this whole thing like this. You see, I'm kind of working my way in each little section as best as I can, being careful around my beaver, being careful around this rock, being careful. So take your time here, and it will be recognized as an end result if you just rush yourself because you don't think you have the patience to go in between all of these crazy little twig sticks that this beaver has built for himself. Then it will just kind of be like a blended over, overly blended mixture of several colors. That's what will happen. So just kind of think of it as like a blender, just using the water and your bristles as a very good blender. And you got to think about where and how you're blending those colors together as you're moving along. And these colors here are very neutral, so there's a lot of grace and forgiveness in its next door neighboring areas, because there's a lot of grays and a lot of browns, and those kinds of colors do typically look nice together or right side beside each other. So like I just did right here, this log and this I blended together a little bit, but it doesn't really seem like I made a huge mistake there. That's what I mean by it being forgiving. Not too many other colors could do that. That's why neutral colors are so wonderful. They get along with each other quite nice. Okay. And I gotta go over here, over in this corner, and then I think we got it. Is that it? I'm gonna look at it for a moment here. And I think that's it. Okay, cool. I'm gonna end this video, and then when this all dries completely, I'm gonna go back on top of it with eraser to include some more highlighting, and also gonna go back at it again once more with some color pencils to emphasize some colorizations and textural qualities. Then it'll be done. Good job so far, good students.